My wife faked a paternity test results to hide her affair and gaslit me. Her disgusting behavior was exposed to everyone. I, 33 male, have been married to Leona, 31 female, for 5 years. We both really loved children, so we didn't waste much time having kids of our own once we got married. We have just one child, though we had plans for 2 more. That's very likely not going to happen anymore because I'm really suspicious of the one child that we have, and to be honest, I really don't think the kid is mine. The idea of it alone is killing me, and I'm sure if I find out that it is the case, it is going to kill me even more. The first thing that made me suspicious was when she got pregnant. The week she was ovulating, I was really sick. When I got better, we slept together, but from my calculations, it shouldn't have been too late for her to conceive. I know that the egg can stay around past the actual ovulation date, and there's always the fact that we don't truly know the actual ovulation date. However, the dates just didn't add up in my head, but I accepted that there was a big chance I was wrong, so I didn't dwell on that too much. I think I actually would have let it go if not for the fact that I felt like the baby didn't look like me, and it didn't look like her either. She claimed that the baby looked like her grandpa, who had long since passed, and when she mentioned it to her parents, they kind of saw it. That felt off to me because I would assume they'd be able to see the resemblance much better than she was able to. Again, I let it go though, because part of me felt like I was just looking for an excuse. I expected to really be able to see any resemblance when our kid was a little older, so I let it go. To be honest, it was really depressing to have to even consider that your own child wasn't yours. So, I think part of me just tried to avoid the topic as much as possible. Our child is 3 years old now, and as far as I'm concerned, you don't need to wait any longer to really be able to see what the child looks like. She doesn't look like me, and I know that's fair, but she doesn't look like her mom either, and that really worries me. I have a very close friend who dealt with paternity fraud, so it is very possible that that is what is making me overthink this. However, I'd rather overthink it than be taken for a fool for way too many years of my life. Before you ask me why I haven't taken my child for a paternity test already, it's because if I do it, I want to be upfront about it. I don't want to be sneaky simply because I think my marriage deserves that honesty in it, especially if I want to be a better person than she is. Call it stupid, whatever. It's just the way that I want to do things. I also didn't want to mention this because I hate the way that it makes me feel, but I felt very insecure about her relationship with the guy who started working at her workplace around the time that she conceived. I knew that he liked her, but she claimed that she couldn't see it and he was just being friendly. I don't know if it's part of the reason why my mind has been fixated on this situation recently. I don't think our child looks like him either. So, there's that. I know I sound like I'm crazy, and that's fine. I just wanted to see what advice or kind words I could get here. I'm fully prepared to confront her and ask her to let us do a paternity test. I know it's like throwing a nuke into our marriage, but I'm an honest person and I love her, so I don't want to do anything behind her back. If I had more basis for my suspicions, I promise I would have gone behind her back and done it. But I don't think she deserves that. I don't think anything will change my mind in that regard. Anyway, I'll go ahead and confront her, and once I do, I suppose I'll take things from there. I'll do my best for her to understand where I'm coming from, though. I do expect her to take offense no matter what. Plus, I think I'll be able to learn a lot from her response. Update 1. If you haven't read my last post, you can do that to get the full context of what's going on in my life. I've confronted my wife about getting a paternity test for a child, and of course, it went as badly as I expected it would. That's fine though, since I anticipated that things would go that way. I sat her down and tried my best to calmly explain to her that I had had issues with how our child had been conceived. I explained to her how I had been really sick that week and how we assumed that we had missed the ovulation window. She cut me off to tell me that our idea of the ovulation window wasn't exact, and I agreed with her on that, which was exactly why I hadn't been too fixated on it at that time. I told her that it wasn't an issue for me through the pregnancy, but when we had our child and she looked like neither of us, that was when I was really concerned. Once again, she interrupted me and told me that the child looked like her grandpa. I responded by telling her I had accepted that, but her parents didn't see the resemblance as much as she seemed to because they didn't seem very convinced the day she brought it up. She told me to cut to the chase and say what I was trying to say. I let her know that I had doubts about the paternity of our child and that I had had doubts since she told me she was pregnant. I let her know that I wanted to have a paternity test done, and I chose to go through the right route instead of stinking our child to go and get one done. She was extremely angry, which is what I expected, and she said I was stupid for thinking that she had ever cheated on me. She was insulted by that, and again, I get it. I told her that I understood, and I was sorry, but it was the kind of thing that I would rather try and be sure about when our child was 3 years old. I felt like she was trying to subtly dissuade me from doing it because she was saying it was going to be a waste of time and money for the two of us. However, I feel like someone who was absolutely sure that they never cheated would rather just lie in wait for that big "I told you so" moment instead of trying to say there was no point. Eventually, she recognized that I wasn't going to back down and she told me to go ahead, but she claimed that I was going to regret it at the end of the day. So, I accepted that. I told her that we had to go together, and very reluctantly, she chose to go along with me. I noticed that she wanted to know when the results were going to be out. She asked me once. I didn't know the answer. She asked the nurse there, who gave an answer, and then she still asked the doctor. When she established that it was going to take several days, she seemed fine with it. They asked how we'd like the results to be delivered, and she proposed that we have it sent by post so that we'd be able to see the physical evidence loud and clear. I agreed to that. The test was done with samples collected for me and my daughter, and that was it. It was a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. That's where we are right now. I've done the confronting, which is the hard part, and now all I need to do is wait. The fact she agreed to come along with me sort of makes me feel better, but I won't feel perfectly okay until I see the result. At the moment, I feel like it is the anxiety that is going to kill me. If my daughter's mine, then I'll be happy. But I'll have to deal with a scorned wife. If she isn't mine, then I'll have to deal with my life falling apart in an even more worse way. I don't know how I'll deal with that, but when the time comes, I guess I'll figure it out. Let's be real. If she were innocent, she'd be irritated, sure, but she wouldn't be interrupting you every 10 seconds, talking in circles, or trying to convince you the test is a waste of money. Innocent people don't panic over clarity. They welcome it. Guilty people, they stall, distract, and make you feel insane for asking basic questions. Update 2. Things have taken a turn that I never expected, and to be quite honest with all of you, I'm completely crushed. I don't even know how to handle the things that I've been through. I'm going to describe this exactly how it happened, so you might be able to understand the emotions that I went through. The first thing was that the results for the paternity test eventually came in the mail. They came when I was at work and she was at home, but she called me to let me know that they had come. And she told me that she wasn't going to open the envelope until I was back, and I was glad to hear that. When I eventually got back, it was the very first thing that I asked that we do because it had been killing me with the anxiety for the entire week that we waited. So, to finally have it, I just needed to know what my fate was. She tried to get me to calm down and settle in first, but ultimately I won. I noticed that I was the only person who was nervous. She seemed more nervous when we were doing the test, but at that moment, she didn't seem to have many worries. Anyway, she let me open the envelope. I pulled out the test result and saw that I was the father of my daughter. To be honest, I felt a lot of relief. I had lived with doubt in my mind for several years, and in that moment, I finally found out the truth. The very first thing that I did was to apologize to her because I knew that I had effed up. I told her that the moment the doubt was in my mind, there was no way for me to fix it but to do the test. I accepted that she'd hold it against me for some time, but I just wanted her to understand I needed the truth. Of course, she held it against me and I expected that. I took it with as much grace as I had. The part where things really took a turn was when I was talking with my friend about the situation and I sent him a picture I had taken of the test results. During all my doubts, he was the sole person I had confided in. He had been of the opinion that I should have done the test without her knowledge, and he still maintained that. However, he accepted that I was the father since he had already convinced himself I wasn't, and he had started to harbor ill feelings towards Leona. He reached out to me several hours later and asked me whether I was sure that the envelope had been sealed. I had been the one to open it myself and let him know. It seemed like he wanted Leona to be the villain at all costs, but I didn't say that to him. He asked me if I was sure it hadn't been resealed, and I said that there was no way I could know that. I asked him why he was asking all those questions, and he said that he was convinced that the document had been edited. At that point, it just seemed like he was grasping at straws. I just wanted to be free of all the drama, but I decided to hear him out. That was when he showed me what he had seen. He showed me the part with the interpretation of the results as the probability of paternity. And he said that the text looked like it wasn't set right, as if it had been added after the fact. At that point, I started to think that he was just trying to make Leona out to be the villain no matter what. I told him that might be a stretch, but he showed me all his reasons for thinking the text had been edited. And to be honest, it sort of made sense, because they didn't align with the margins the way the rest of the text did. I told him there was a pretty easy way to confirm the results hadn't been tampered with, and all I had to do was go to the lab and have them reprint it for me. So that was exactly what I did. All I had to do was confirm that I was who I said I was and then printed it out for me. I didn't even wait to get into the car before I opened the new envelope. My friend was actually right. She had somehow edited the paternity test to say that I was the father. It was crazy to me, because it was a bunch of numbers that are clearly for the more scientifically inclined, and those were untouched, because I never would have been able to interpret them on my own. She knew that. However, she changed the interpretation that was on the result, because that was all I was going to care about, and she was right. The way I felt is genuinely indescribable, because at that moment, not only did I find out that my daughter wasn't mine, not only did I find out my wife had lied to me, but I found out she tried to take me for an absolute fool by forging the results of the paternity test. It was insane to me. I had to actually claw myself back from confronting her immediately. I wanted to so badly, but I knew that it would be better for me to be smart in that situation. I had been foolish by trying to be an honest husband in the first place. I should have done everything in the background in the first place, and I never would have had to deal with the forged paternity test in the first place. I sat in my car a very long time trying to get my emotions under control. The mind was all over the place. And quite understandably, once I had calmed down, I went straight to checking for divorce lawyers in the area. I needed one with good reviews. So, I sat in the car for about a full hour while looking for one who fit all the criteria that I was looking for. Eventually, I found one, placed a call, and went straight to his office. I've set that up and the papers are ready to be served at this point. Update 3. I'm going to get straight to the point this time around. When the divorce papers were ready, I had Leona served right away. I was going to do the confronting after she wondered what was going on, though I'm sure her mind would zero in on the fact that I might have found out the truth. I wasn't at home when she was served, and she called me 5 times and sent a bunch of messages. But I knew that I wasn't going to respond to her until I was in the house with her. I think confrontations like that are best done in person because you don't give the person any time to think up a stupid excuse for their behavior. When I got home, she didn't try to take the high ground. She was submissive, and she waited for me to speak before she said anything. I asked her if she had any idea of why I wanted a divorce, and thankfully she didn't try to act like she was clueless. She nodded innocently, and it pissed me off because she was trying to be meek as if it was going to make the me softer with her. I asked her who she had slept with, but she didn't want to answer that question. I didn't want to be great aggressive, but I wanted an answer to that question no matter what because I knew that I deserved it. I'd been raising someone else's child as my own, so I was owed that at the barest minimum. I did have to get aggressive in the end, and when I did, she eventually admitted that it was the person she had worked with. But it wasn't a person she spoke about often. She said his name was Edwin. I didn't believe it, but I took it, because what else could I do? I told her that she was the worst kind of person. Not only has she cheated on me, she had kept her affair buried for 3 years, and the same affair had yielded a child that wasn't even mine. On top of that, she tried to cover her tracks by forging the results before I got home. I wouldn't have found out if I hadn't scrutinized it. I didn't throw my friend under the bus. I told her that I wished her the absolute worst in life because she had served me a kind of pain that I genuinely did not deserve. I had been a good father to that girl, and I knew that since she was still very young, I'd be able to leave without destroying her. It wasn't something I want to do, but when you think about it, what am I meant to do? She's not my child, and she's only 3. It's going to hurt, but she has a real father out there, and it isn't me. It doesn't mean I will stop loving her, but I just have to do it. I let out all my emotions, and she just sat there and took it. When I was done, I started to pack my things. We lived in a rented apartment, and it would have been too big and too expensive for myself, so I just gave it up. I'm not ready to start fighting over that. She tried to get me to stay, but her pleading was very weak because she knew there was no way I was going to stick around. I couldn't even say that I wanted to stay with the kid because she wasn't mine. It's heartbreaking, but what am I meant to do? Life has dealt me a pretty crappy hand. Update 4. This will be my final update on this, but now I'm officially divorced. The proceedings were pretty simple. There was no house in contention and no custody or child support to worry about. I have to pay alimony, but the good thing is that I won't be paying that for long. So, hey, I guess I don't really mind that too much. I knew that I wasn't going to end things like that. I had been burned very badly, so I went straight into telling everyone the truth about her. I took pictures of the fake paternity test and the real one. I wrote a long message explaining the situation and all the ways she had tried to fool me and gaslight me. And then I took my sweet time sending it to as many people as I could. I sent it to all of her family members. If I didn't have their numbers, I sent it to them on Facebook. I posted it on my Instagram story. I sent it out to our mutual friends. I sent it to people she used to go to school with. I sent it to neighborhood groups. I wanted to destroy her, and I think it worked. I didn't respond to anyone who replied looking for details or clarification because my message was super clear. I only responded to her when she called, and when she did, I didn't say a word for the first few minutes. I let her scream and shout. She said that it was private and it was meant to be between the two of us. She said I had betrayed her. She said I had never loved her. It was amusing, but I kept my cool and simply let her know that that was what she deserved. I told her that people needed to know the kind of person she was, and I had done my civic duty in spreading the word. She started to curse me out, but I just hung up on her and blocked her. It hurts because I thought I had the perfect life, but now it is all gone. That's life, I suppose, and all I can do at this point is try to move on. I'll do my best in that regard, and I'll try to take life a day at a time. Her behavior after the exposure, screaming at you about privacy while conveniently ignoring the part where she tried to scam you into raising another man's child for the rest of your life. Funny how cheaters always suddenly care about boundaries once their mess becomes public. She didn't get betrayed, she got revealed. Joke's on her. Ever get that sinking feeling that something's off and later wish you'd listened to yourself sooner? Share your experience with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today on our space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time,